Hey everyone! In this video, we're going to build a simple e-commerce website with Tailwind UI and Next.js. We're going to fetch some products from a Shopify store using the Storefront GraphQL API, and we'll create our pages by assembling components from Tailwind UI to give us a really solid foundation and starting point. We'll make a few customizations to the component we use in order to meet our needs and achieve this final result. I hope you're as excited as I am to dive into all of this. Let's do that right now. Okay, so let's make a very quick tour of the property and discover our starting point. I have created a Shopify store here with a few products, and each product has a title, a description, an image, a price, tags, etc. Now, Shopify comes with its own front-end and theming ecosystem, but there is also a headless solution via the Storefront GraphQL API, and this is what we're going to use here. This video is not going to be an introduction to GraphQL and Next.js. Instead, I'll assume that you're already familiar with these technologies. There's a lot to cover here, so I've already scaffolded a simple little Next.js project, and I'll show you what I've done so far. Okay, so what I've done is a basic Create Next app installation, and then on top of this, I've installed Tailwind CSS, a few Tailwind CSS plugins that are needed for the components that we're going to use, as well as other dependencies like Headless UI, hero icons, and date functions. I have created a Tailwind config file, and you can see that we're using the just-in-time mode, and we've extended the font family object to use the inter var font. And like I mentioned before, if I come down, we're using the 3 Tailwind CSS plugins here. Finally, I've already assembled 3 Tailwind UI components together, a header, a footer, and a placeholder component here, just to get us started. All right, let's do this. We're going to jump into Tailwind UI and try to find some components that help us put our store together. So here I am logged in my account where I have access to the complete bundle, which is marketing, application UI, and e-commerce. And for this project, we'll mix and match components from e-commerce, but also marketing, which is totally fine to do. And so we'll start our homepage with a big, bold headline. So I'll come up here and check inside the hero section. We're looking for something fairly simple here, a big, bold headline, a paragraph of text, and a call to action. And actually, this first component right here seems to be what I want. We don't really want the entire component. For example, I don't need this navigation here. But remember, these components are meant to be a starting point. It's totally fine and even encouraged to customize these components. Take what you need, remove what you don't. And so here we're going to come in the code tab and we'll skip all of this navigation. And essentially, the only part that we want is this main section here. And we'll come in the home page here and replace our placeholder element. And here's what it looks like now. As I mentioned a minute ago, Tailwind UI components are meant to be customized, and it's super easy to do so by changing classes on elements. Let me illustrate this by making a few tweaks to this component. Okay, so first I'm increasing the vertical spacing here, and I also move the main tag 1 level up. I'm changing the text for the headline and the paragraph, and then we're going to change these buttons here. We only want one button, so I'll get rid of the second button and change the colors of the first button to a very dark gray, almost black. I also changed the padding of the button, and since it will have a text and a price, I wrap both the children elements in a span tag and add a divider with some internal padding. Okay, great. So that's our hero section done. Let's jump back in Tailwind UI, and this time we're going to look at some e-commerce components, and we want a list of products. So we're going to check this product list category, and let's take a look at what we've got here. Okay, so this one with tall images here is actually the closest to what we're looking for. So we could grab the whole component here, but because we're already exporting a function in our homepage in Next.js, we're going to grab what we need. So we'll first grab this array of products, and I'll come right at the top of my page here and paste this, but we're going to change this to static products, just so we don't get confused with the real Shopify products when they come. And now we're going to grab the markup. We actually don't need the wrapping BG white container since our background is already white, so I'll grab everything inside of that one. Just before the closing main tag, I'm going to paste this JSX. And so I must not forget to change here products to static products. And sure enough, you can see this component now on our page. Once again, we'll make some customizations and I'll walk you through those. We're not doing much here. Like before, I increased the vertical padding, and then I'm going to change the aspect ratio of the images to a landscape 4:3 ratio so it works better with our product images. All right, looks like it's time to get real products in here. Like I've mentioned earlier, Shopify provides a GraphQL API called the Storefront API, which allows us to interact with the customer-facing side of a given Shopify store. Within the Shopify admin UI, we can use this GraphQL Explorer, which allows us to write and test queries and mutation against the API. So since we want to query for products, let's create a new query called products. And we're going to look for products here. And you can see that it returns a product connection, but instead of having the products directly, we have what's called edges. And within edges, we then have a node. And then after the node, we finally have our list of products with all the interesting fields. And this is something that will come again and again, these edges and node that we need to drill down through to get to our data. Just know that it's something useful for pagination, and we're not going to use it here, but this is why it's here. We also need to tell how many products we want. So we want the first n products. So you could use 50, 40. Here, I know that I have exactly 6 products, so I will go with 6. And so we're going to drill into these edges and nodes. And now in here, we'll finally have all our fields like the title, etc. So let's think for a second what data we actually need. So for each product, we want an image, we want a product title, a product price, and this bit of text, which is stored in the tags of the product. And finally, we need a unique identifier, and we're going to use the handle field for that to link each of these products to their own page. We've already asked for the title. Let's ask for this handle field that I was mentioning. We also want the tags, and then we want the price. So price is a little bit different. It's a price range, which has a min and max. So we're going to go with the min variant. And finally, inside of this, there is the amount. And we want one more field, which is the image. So we have images. And again, we have edges and nodes here, and we need to say we want the first, in this case, one image. So we're going to go in edges and nodes. And the fields we want here is the transformed source, which is a optimized image, if possible. And we also want the alt text. So let's run this query and see what happens. And bingo, we have a list of 6 products with the fields that we've asked for. And notice that it comes into a data object here. All right, so now I guess we need to connect our Next.js site with the API and send that exact query so we can get this data and display it in the grid. There are many different approaches to pull GraphQL data inside of a project, but here we're going to keep things really simple and use the native JavaScript fetch method. For this specific project, we're building a digital asset store. That means we don't have to worry about quantity of things getting out of stock. We know our list of products and we know it's not going to change often. So it's a perfect use case here to build static pages with Next.js. In other words, the GraphQL API call is going to happen at build time, and so the products will be displayed immediately to the users when the site is live. Since we're going to make a few different fetch calls here, let's create a little abstraction. So I'll create a new file in a utils folder, and we're going to export an async function called Storefront. And this function is going to accept 2 arguments, a query and a variables object, which defaults to an empty object. And inside of this function, we're going to do our fetch call. So const response, and we're going to await fetch. So we first need to pass the GraphQL endpoint, API URL for now. And then we'll pass some options. So the method will always be post with GraphQL. We'll also pass some headers. The first one will be content type, and it's going to be application/JSON. And we also need to pass another custom header, X Shopify Storefront access token. And for now, I'll use access token. And finally, we need to pass our body. And here we will have JSON.stringify, and we'll pass the arguments in an object, so query and variables. Another disclaimer here, I'm writing code for screencast purposes here, as opposed to production-ready applications. I'm going to make a big assumption here and assume that there's only a happy path and the API always returns the data that I want. And so in the real case scenario here, you would definitely want to do error handling, but here I'm going to be blissfully naive and just return response.json. All right, so let's replace our API URL and access token values here. These are okay to be displayed in public, but we'll still put them in a .env file. So in Next.js, we can go .env.local. And so I'll paste these here. And we actually need to use them in the browser in the single product page. And to do this in Next.js, we need to prefix these with next_public. And so now we can come here and fix these to use process.env, and we need to add next public, and I'll grab this and prefix the other variable with it. And now let's come in our homepage component, and remember we're going to build static pages, so I'm going to use get static props here.
Here we go.
And basically inside of here we want to return our products from the API. So we'll use our storefront helper that we've just created. So I'll come at the top here and import storefront from our utils folder. And down here, we're going to destructure our data that comes back, and we will await storefront. Remember, we can pass a query. So we will pass products query, which doesn't exist yet. And the reason I'm destructuring data here is, remember, our API returns data nested in a data object. So we're going to grab this entire query, and I could paste it here, but let's come down here and go const products query and paste that here. Now, notice how there is no syntax highlighting, and if I mess up the indentation of the query and save, nothing happens. Now, if you have the GraphQL extension in VS Code, you can use a tool called GQL that will bring syntax highlighting, and also when I save, plop it into place. But this requires an external package called GraphQL tag. I'm going to show you a super cool trick here. Const GQL equals string.row. I will leave it at that, but by doing this, you don't have to import the package and it will behave exactly like if you had it. So we have our products query and we are passing it inside there. So now we should be able to return our products by giving it data.products. So let's take a deep breath. We're going to come up here and receive these products. And then let's try to console.log these products. So fingers crossed, let's refresh the page. And look at this. We have our edges with our 6 product nodes inside of it. Amazing. All right, now it's time to temporarily break things. And we're going to try, instead of static products here, to use our products. And remember, products are nested in the edges. So that's going to wreck our UI, as you can see here. But let's go and try replace with the correct data. So instead of product here, I'll go item, and I will turn this implicit return into an explicit return, which is going to allow me to just abstract away a couple of variables here. Const product equals, and that's why I changed name to item, so we can go item.node. Const image to use here. And here this is going to be product.images. Remember, it's an array with edges, and we want the first edge, and then grab the node. And again, happy path here, we assuming that there's always at least one image, so .node returns something. All right, so let's try replace things here. We have a product.handle that we can use for the key. And for the href, I will add backticks here, and we will go /products/ and then product.handle once again. And because we're using the anchor tag here, I'll quickly come up here and import link from next link. So we can now wrap our anchor tag in a link. And ESLint is going to be very upset until I move the key and href attributes to the link itself. Voila.
Thank you.
So let's try replace our images first. I've abstracted here the image, so I can go image, and instead of image source, we have that transformed src, and the alt tag is image.alt text. And woo, check it out. These are images coming straight from Shopify into our Next.js site. Cool. So let's keep going. We're going to change product.name to product.title. And the price, remember, is price range dot mean variant price dot amount. And then here for the descriptions, we're using the tags. And here it's just a simple array. So we're gonna go tags 0. And let's have a look. This is not bad at all. We just want to format the price a bit nicer. So I'll quickly jump into my utils and we will export another function, format price. Here I'm writing a quick helper function that takes a number and then formats it nicely to the Australian currency for the prices. We will also import format price from the same file. And so now I can come here and wrap my price in format price. And beautiful, now our prices are displayed properly. If you don't mind, I'll just drink a little bit of water. And you should too, by the way. And let's keep going. All right, so that's our homepage complete now with the products from Shopify. And if I click through one of these, like PayKit, you can see that it takes us to /product/ the name of the handle, which is here PayKit. But that page doesn't exist yet. So we're now going to create a dynamic route in Next.js. So we're going to create a new file in pages, and we're going to call this one product/ and then make it dynamic with the handle field. We might find what we need in individual e-commerce components here, but what we're going to do instead here is look at a product page, a complete page example, and then we're going to keep what we need and remove the rest. So if we scroll down to the last example of this page examples category, this section here is quite similar to what we want. What we could do is just grab the entire component and paste this as is in our new product page. So now if we come back in our product/PayKit page and we refresh the page, we now have the entire page example that we've copied. Here's how it looks for now. And there's things we don't need, like this whole navigation with the flat menus. We don't need the customer reviews section. And right here, there's only one related product in the example for now. And we don't need this footer at all because we already have our footer down there. So let's go and clean up the parts that we don't need and start working from there. So we're going to remove a bunch of stuff here, starting with this mobile menu section, as well as the entire header contents. I'm also removing the star ratings, the highlight section, the whole share icons section, and we'll also remove this entire tab group. Finally, I'll remove the footer section. And I'll do one more thing. I'll come at the top, and in our related products, you can see we only have one product here. So I'll duplicate it 4 times, 2, 3, 4. And there's still some spacing issues that we're going to fix, and we'll change all the colors. I remove the bottom padding and increase the top padding, and change colors on the buttons. And oops, I see that I've made a mistake here. It's not Grat 700, but Gray 700. Here's our main button and the secondary button, along with the focus states. We'll also change the color of this link and this link to be Gray 900. One more thing that we can do here is remove this view product on hover and instead have the image get to 75% opacity like on the home page. Yeah, perfect. So it looks like we're good in terms of design, and now we have to bring our content from Shopify. Right, so what we want to do this time is query for a single product. And the Storefront API has a product by handle query, but as you can expect, it expects a handle. So here we're going to need to use a variable. So I'll go $handle. And to make this variable available here, I need to define it. So this query will have a handle variable, which is a string and is required. And providing that you pass the correct handle, you would be able to get access to all the fields like title, description, and actually let's look at our design. So we need the image, the title. We're not going to use the version, but for the updated day, we can use the updated at field from Shopify. That's the description, the price, And that's about it. So we have title, description. We want this updated at field that I just mentioned. Let's grab the tags as well. The price, remember price range, min variant price, amount, and we want the first image. So we want edges, node, transform source, and alt text. All right, but if I try run this, it's not going to return anything because I haven't provided a value for handle. So let's come down there in query variables, and I can open a little JSON object, and we're going to have a handle, and one of our products we know is called PayKit. So by defining this variable, now I should be able to retrieve the PayKit product. We're going to grab this query here and use it in our project. So I'll come at the bottom, and let's do const single product query equals GQL. All right, so when building dynamic routes in a static way, there's a couple more steps to do. We need to generate get static props, but also get static paths.
Here we go.
So in this array of path, we need to return the handle param for each of the 6 products in our Shopify store. So let's import Storefront from utils. And now in here, const data equals await Storefront. And here we're not using the single products query. We actually want the 6 products. So let's go GQL. We want to query products first 6. And then we want to go in edges, node. And we just want to grab the handle for each. So here, instead of an array, data products.edges.map. And for each product, we're going to return an object. So let's do an implicit return, and the object will have params, and then here handle, and our handle is going to be our product.node.handle. So that sounds a bit complicated, but basically it's going to add the handle param to each of the routes. And now with that in place, we can use get static props. And here we can receive these params. That means that now we can grab the data here and query our single product knowing the handle, which we're going to find from the params. Const data equals await storefront. And here we're going to this time pass our single product query. But we're going to pass a second parameter, because remember our storefront helper method here accepts a second argument, which is the variables object. So here we're going to have an object with the handle, which is the variable we need to pass, params.handle. So that was a lot, but finger crossed it worked. We're going to return our props, which will have a product, which will be data.product by handle. And we're going to come to the top and accept our product. But notice that we already have a product variable here. So we're going to alias this to single product just for the time being. So we can console.log it. Refresh the page. And here's our single product. And you can see the fields in there. Beautiful. All right, so let's break things and repair them. We're going to get rid of the static data here. And we can get rid of the aliasing here and the console log. Let's make our life easier once again with const image equals product.images.edges bracket 0.node. So here we can go image.transformed source and image.alt text. Let's keep going down. So here we have a product.title from our API. And here we're going to make something slightly different. Instead of the version, we're going to use here the tags. And here we're going to have a middle dot instead of the parentheses. So let's close it here. And for our date, we actually have the product.updated at. And we can use the same here, product.updated at. There you go. So we have our image, our title, the type of product, but the date is not very friendly. That's a quick fix. I've installed a library called date functions, which I can import here, and we'll import format from date fns. And here we're going to wrap this in format. And so we're going to have a new date with that value, and then dd mmm Why? Beautiful, updated on 8th of September 2021. Funnily enough, the description has already been updated because it's using product.description here. And if we keep going, the price, remember, is price range that min variant price, that amount. And we want to wrap this in a format price. So let's bring it here. And so now we have a nicely displayed currency. And I think that's it for the single product. So now we can tackle the related products. So it turns out that on this page, we not only need the single product, but we also need other products for related products. So what we can do is require also other products in the same query. So we get all of them into one API call. So I'm actually going to come here and grab the request for the products as well. And we're going to tack that onto our single product request. So we're asking for product by handle. And then down here, we can also ask for 6 products. So let's save that. And we're also going to add, I just thought of this here. We need the handle here in the product because we're going to use it to compare the related products and the current product. So up here, we're currently returning the one product in the product key, and we can also return the product, which is data.products. Right, so let's come to the top and also accept our products. Let me scroll down a bit. And what we're going to do now is create a const related product, which is going to take these products and their edges and filter. So let's grab an item. We only want to keep the items where node.handle is not the same as the current product.handle. And then this is a little bit simplistic, but that works here. We're going to slice our array from 0 to 4. So we take all the products, we remove the one that matches the current product, and then whatever's left, we slice and keep the first 4. So we always have 4 products to show that are not the current product. So let's come down to our related products. And here, once again, we're going to do an explicit return. And I'm speeding up the video here because everything I do has been covered before. I create variables for the product and the image, and then use the correct data in the components for the image, the product title, the price, which I once again wrap in the format price helper and the product tag. Finally, I wrap the anchor tag into a next link tag and point that to the individual product page. Let's look at our page. So this is the single product. And then we have 4 products which are different to this product. So if I go to annuals, I'm now taken to annuals and I will never find it down there. If I go to format, it goes to format, etc. So it's working properly. All right, so the last piece of the puzzle here is to hook up the pay button to send the user to the checkout flow. To do that, we can send a mutation to the API. So let's come up here and write our mutation real quick. Mutation checkout create. And it needs to take a variant ID, which is an ID. And so here we're going to go checkout create. And here we need to use an input. This input has line items. Each line item has a variant ID, which is our variant ID, as well as a quantity, which in our case is always 1. And this is going to return us a checkout. And inside that checkout, there is this web URL field that we want. So the problem is we currently don't have that variant ID here, but in our single product query, we could also add for variants. And yes, we need to go first. We just want 1, edges, nodes, and here we want the ID. And by adding this field to our request, we'll be able to use that as a variable. So let's come down in our single product query here, and after the images, we'll add the variants, which means that now I can grab the variant ID from product.variants.edges first one, node ID. Now that we have that in place, we can grab this mutation here. And so I'll come right at the bottom after my query and go const checkout mutation, and we'll go GQL and paste a mutation here. So basically now we're going to hook this up with the button click event. And before we do that, let's add a little piece of state. Import use state from React. And here I'll create a piece of state const is loading, set is loading, use state, and we'll start with false. So let's come down in our button and we'll add an on click here. And for now, we're just going to toggle the loading state by setting it to what it's not. And I'm actually going to come here in the Tailwind CSS docs in the animate spin example. And I'm going to grab this SVG element. So here before the text, if is loading is true, I'm going to render this SVG. And so now let's focus on our button and we're gonna toggle it on and off. Nice. What we actually want to do is handle our mutation and redirect the user. So there's gonna be a bit of code here. So instead of doing it inline, I'll create a checkout method and we'll come up here, async function checkout. So here we're gonna start by setting the loading state to true. Set is loading true. And then we're going to fire our mutation. So await storefront. And here we want to fire our checkout mutation. And as variables, we want to pass, remember, the variant ID. And assuming that works properly, we should receive a web URL property nested in data.checkout.create.checkout. And that means that we can redirect the user with window.location.href equals web URL. Let's give that a try. Let's choose a pay kit for $59 and click on pay. And look at this, beautiful. We have the pay kit element for $59. All right, so hopefully this video gave you a good idea how to integrate Tailwind UI with the headless e-commerce solution and showed you how easy it is to customize the Tailwind UI components to build exactly what you need. Don't be afraid to make customizations. This is what they were built for, and this is what will make your product stand out. And that about wraps it up for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.